Battlefield 5 needs Operation Health. For those of you out there who are familiar with Rainbow Six Siege, I know that's quite a lot of you, you'll know all about Operation Health and what it entailed, but for those of you who aren't familiar with it, I'll explain that for you in this video today, and I'll also explain why I think Battlefield 5 needs to adopt a similar system at this very moment in time. I've got a few points that I'd like to discuss in this video, but ultimately, something has to change around Battlefield 5, and maybe something as drastic as a system like Operation Health, that may be the answer at the moment. But before we get into all of that, today's video is sponsored by OnePlus and their OnePlus 7 Pro. Now, you might remember that I posted a video, I think over a month ago now, that was showing off this brand new smartphone and what it's capable of. I'm also a massive OnePlus fan. I've had like the last 5 phones that they've made, so I was really excited to get my hands on this brand new one. And I also said that I'd come back and give you guys an update, so that's what we're doing right here. After using this thing for about 6 or 7 weeks now, I am standing firm with my assessment that this is the fastest smartphone that I have ever used. The 90Hz refresh rate fluid AMOLED display combined with some really neat software animation enhancements really do make moving around the OS feel really snappy and responsive. And now that I've been looking at a 90Hz display on a smartphone for so long, and then I look back at a 60Hz smartphone display, the difference is really night and day. My expectations have basically been ruined now because there aren't that many smartphones out there using a 90Hz display. So whenever I look at anyone else's phone and I look at that screen, I can just see the difference straight away, and it doesn't look right when I'm looking at 60Hz anymore. 90Hz is basically brilliant, enough said. I did get myself a nice robust case for the phone, as it is a little bit slippery, and of course it is a large phone, a 6.67-inch display, but when I'm using the phone around my flat, I tend to take the case off. This nebula blue colour on the back is really eye-catching. So yeah, the OnePlus 7 Pro is pretty awesome, and it's insanely fast. If you want to get more info on it, or you want to look at different models, there's a link at the top of the description. Go and click that, and it'll take you over to their website. Okay then, on with the video, Operation Health. I'm going to refrain from going on too much about just the abysmal state of Battlefield 5 right now, because I've done that in previous videos, and I think most people are generally aware of the main issues that the game is facing right now. So instead, let's get into why a system like the one used by Ubisoft for Rainbow Six Siege, why that might be a good step forwards for DICE and Battlefield 5. So firstly, what actually is Operation Health? Rainbow Six Siege is split into seasons, very similar to the chapters that we have in Battlefield 5, and they have 4 different seasons every year. Year 2, Season 2, was substituted for an entire 3-month operation of game improvements, bug fixing, and technical upgrades. The official description for Operation Health reads, Operation Health has been all about fixing several issues and investing in better technology to make sure we keep growing strong in the upcoming years. It focuses on 3 main pillars: technical improvements, a new deployment process, and addressing top community reported bugs. The aim was not only to fix a bunch of issues the game had at the time that were causing frustration within the Rainbow Six community, but it was also to try and shore up the game for the future by fixing core issues and adapting the framework for future content and updates. So instead of just fixing all of those bugs that were right on the surface and causing the community a lot of frustration, the team also took the time to deploy a bunch of new stuff underneath that would make their lives a little bit easier in the future, and would try and make sure that these bugs didn't reoccur, because new systems have been implemented that wouldn't cause those problems anymore. Now, of course, understandably, replacing an entire 3-month-long season of content that was planned for the game with a stint of bug fixing wasn't exactly the most exciting announcement for a lot of the Rainbow Six community, and I do remember at the time that a lot of players were disappointed, and that's to say the least, that they were missing out on content that they'd been promised. The multiplayer map that had been planned to release during that season was completely cancelled, and the operators that were planned to be released, they were shifted into the next 2 seasons following Operation Health. Now, these days, if content isn't flowing continuously for gamers to consume, then games do tend to have a problem at retaining a player base. But also, if the game is a buggy mess and it doesn't work properly, enter Battlefield 5, then you also have a problem retaining players, because the game you want them to play just, well, it isn't fun for them to play, so why the hell would they play it? The development team at Ubisoft, they decided to take this decision so they could solely focus on the health of the game, as they weren't satisfied with the previous pace that they've been delivering fixes and improvements. So by dedicating an entire 3-month season to fixing the game and bringing it up to a higher quality standard, they were able to make the game less frustrating for players, and they'd be able to lay down groundwork for future systems and implement better systems as well. Essentially, instead of delivering content alongside bug fixes, the team chose to solely focus on bug fixes for a while, so that when that new content arrived, the game would just be in a better state overall. So if we apply that mentality to Battlefield 5 currently, what would be the case? Well, right now we've just started Chapter 4 Defying the Odds, a 3-month chapter that takes us up to the end of September, and then in October we're seeing the launch of the Operation Underground map before the Pacific Theater arrives in the autumn. The Pacific is a huge opportunity for Battlefield 5 to just regain some credibility in the shooter space, I think, and perhaps show players that this game is capable of delivering some truly iconic World War II battles and locations. It's a chance for Battlefield 5 to lose that identity crisis that's been hanging over it for a long time. It's a chance to sort of stand out as a proper World War II game. But it doesn't stand a chance if the game is buggy and glitchy and it runs like absolute crap on all platforms. If DICE were to take the approach of Operation Health and refocus the team's efforts on fixing core issues, implementing new systems and smooth out processes for the future, and maybe fix some top community feedback bugs as well, then I'm confident we would see a slowdown or maybe a complete stop on new content until the end of a chapter or a season. And since we've just started a season, perhaps announcing something like that right now might simply be adding more fuel to an extremely large fire already, but I genuinely believe that the state of Battlefield 5 right now shows that the game is in desperate need of some focused attention. Let's say the buggy state of the game continues right now all the way through Chapter 4 and it approaches Chapter 5. Can you imagine the apprehension the community would have at that point? And I think we also have to question how much of a community would actually be left at that point. I'd certainly be concerned if core issues were still present and we were on the cusp of brand new content. It just wouldn't sit right for me. Around the March time for Battlefield 5 a few months back, the game was in a pretty good state performance-wise. The buggy launch was behind us and many of the core issues that had been present in the game had been fixed. And I think a lot of players were genuinely looking forward to the content that was coming in Chapter 3. We have the Firestorm Battle Royale mode and the Mercury map as well. But as we move through the chapter, things just got worse and worse again, and by the end of the chapter we were back to the same levels, if not worse, than we were at the launch of the game, where you couldn't play around with the game without experiencing a bug or issue. This time, however, the bugs are even more visible, or not visible as the case may be, with those pesky soldiers not rendering their clothes in properly. Performance has just tanked on all platforms, and the game is running really poorly in general. On the consoles, it's even worse. Crashes during rounds and during loading screens, that's becoming increasingly more common. The hotfix that was released to try and crush these issues, it didn't work properly, and it made the situation even worse on the Xbox One. And DICE is now gearing up to release another hotfix to try and get things back on track. They are scrabbling to try and keep themselves afloat. They are struggling to keep their heads above the water at the moment, and it's genuinely not a good look. I feel the team would really benefit from more time to fix these problems, rather than just pumping out small hotfixes that are clearly pushing them to the limit to build and submit them for certification. We've had a string of patches for the game that have fixed some issues, yes, but they've introduced more of them, and so players are starting to question the process that DICE is using, and so maybe a system like Operation Health might help DICE in this situation. The team is obviously working on patches and updates all the time, but those patches are coming at a faster pace than previous games in the franchise. If the issue list is too long to work through in a timely manner for the update schedule that's currently in place, then perhaps that update schedule needs to change for a while to allow the team working on the game to really catch up and implement some proper fixes without making things worse at the same time. Of course, this is just an idea that I came up with after having sat through 5, 6, 7 patches for the game where things have just gotten worse and worse, and I do understand that implementing a system like Operation Health would likely mean a stop on basically all content for the game for a short while, but I think that stopping content for the game and stopping those releases to fix underlying problems and bugs is a better scenario than seeing all of that new content that we are looking forward to basically go to waste because of bugs and issues within the core game. Let's face it, if Al Sundan had released on Conquest with the game-breaking bug in it, no one would appreciate that brand new piece of content because, well, it doesn't work properly, and instantly the conversation becomes about the issues. So I think stopping all content and fixing the bugs, at least temporarily, for some kind of Operation Health, would be a good solution to the problems. But whatever DICE does decide to do here, they've got a seriously big problem on their hands, and it's not a good look for Battlefield 5. But let me know what you think. Do you think Battlefield 5 needs the urgent attention that maybe an Operation Health could provide, or would you prefer the game to just get the content that it so desperately needs? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments section. And today, a massive thank you to OnePlus for sponsoring this video. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to learn more about the OnePlus 7 Pro, click the link at the top of the description. And big thank you for you guys for watching today. And until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.